stoked. I love being a part of first time deals, and that's kind of what brought me here. So we're gonna have a good time. However long we're here, it's gonna be a good time.
Yeah, yes, sir. Well, we obviously cover a lot of motorsports, a little bit more heavy on the drag racing side because a large portion of the community that's what we do, that's what they do, and uh,
Right.
bringing you on to come in from a little bit different perspective of motorsports, which would be the kind of the stock car, NASCAR, late model kind of racing, which I'll be honest, I don't really know a ton about other than Talladega Nights. I mean, that's kind of, or sometimes you'll see it on a restaurant or a bar, when you're going out to eat on the weekend or something. But no, I mean, I know a little bit, but by no means am I versed to get into a debate with somebody about it. So that's kind of your area of expertise. So I figured maybe it would be interesting for, the Dodge fans and community to, get to hear from somebody on that side of racing for once, rather than all of
Yeah.
us hillbillies that are out drag racing. I probably can't say that. uh,
Man, look, you came to the right place. It's all motorsports and it's all love. So, the brand Dodge, the brand has had a super long history in NASCAR and in stock car racing, and the fans in NASCAR they miss it. They miss the brand being a part of it. So for Dodge Motorsports to come on and do this late model race with me in Florence, South Carolina, I get to bang doors with Dale Jr., so that'll be cool. Um, it's really big, and I, we were talking about first and being a part of first, so for me to be a part of that is massive, and then for me to educate my boy here a little bit on guys going around in circles, I'm here for that too.
yeah, right. So I guess to start out, fill us in a little bit on what you got going on next week, and kind of the magic and awesomeness behind that whole deal with you, the race, the car, the brand, and all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, firstly, like I'm in Vegas right now, at a Mecum auction, getting ready to do some Dodge thrill rides where we get to, drift the SRT Hellcats. Um, we got Chargers and Challengers out here. We drift them for people for free, which is dope. There's no other brand that does a show like we do. We probably do it, I don't know, 11 to 15 times a year. I've been a part of it for the last couple of years, probably 3 years, since like 19. You always lose that year or two through COVID. Like we kind of like disappeared on you, so you kind of lost. I don't know how many years it's been, but been a part of the brand for a minute in different roles at the events, and kind of kicked around the idea of like, hey man, like, would you guys be interested in just let me put the logos and stuff and kind of doing a tribute Dodge car for a late model race, a local short track race? And like everyone thought it was cool, but we never really got serious about it until Roadkill this past year. And I was talking with my buddy Matt Broziak, and he kind of ran up the flagpole, and everyone was like, "No, that sounds like a good idea." So we're racing the South Carolina 400 at Florence Speedway in Florence, South Carolina. It's a big late model race, late model stock car race. It used to be the Myrtle Beach 400 before that racetrack shut down and they mowed it over. So now it moved over to Florence, and it's gonna be really cool. It's gonna be on Flow Live, so we're good to practice Thursday. I'll practice Friday, and then practice, qualify, and race on Saturday. My parents are coming down. I usually only get to race like once a year. This year I ran an ARCA race at Indianapolis Raceway Park, which was super fun. And then, now we're doing this, and it kind of came up the same way that race came up. I was kind of talking to AJ Allmendinger, and, we're at a bar, and he was like, "Hey man, when are you going to race again?" I'm like, "Man, I don't know." And so he grabbed a napkin and wrote out a half contract for him to sponsor me in this ARCA race. And we signed it, and I made sure to take a picture of it and put it out so he couldn't say it didn't happen.
Right.
We had a couple cocktails, but then towards the end of this year, we're back at the bar, Boatyard Eats, and he's like, "Man, that was so much fun. When are we gonna go racing again?" I said, "Bro, like, I don't know when you want to go." And so the schedule just kind of laid out, and he grabbed the napkin again and he wrote it out. He wrote TBD, and then I started talking to Matt more about it, and he's like, "Maybe we can do something." So here we are. We're going racing, man.
We'll get into a little bit more detail about the all the stuff going on next week in a little bit. But why don't we back up for a second and
Yeah.
fill us in for anybody who might not know or be very familiar with kind of your story and how you got from being in diapers to what you're doing now, which involves all kinds of stuff outside of just obviously this one race. So I know you started racing very young, doing racing go-karts and that kind of stuff, but can you kind of fill everybody in on some of the highlights of between then and now?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of wild because so I'm adopted, and I grew up in Randolph, Vermont, which most people don't know where Vermont is. If you've ever been to Epping for the NHRA races, we're the state right next to that. We touch Canada and New York and New Hampshire, and everyone forgets that that's actually its own state. It's called Vermont. So that's where I'm from. Grew up there, and I've always raced. My dad got me a go kart when I was 4. I went and we did our first race, and we did really well, and then we won, and then we kept winning. And as a young kid, winning was cool. So that's kind of where I stayed. Like I played sports, basketball, soccer, baseball, all that other stuff. But racing was different because it was like mine. I was the only one in my school in my hometown really doing it. So it was unique to me, which was super fun. And then having that connection with my parents. We all worked 3 jobs to pay for it until it just became too much. As everyone knows, I'm sure all your listeners know, like racing is
Oh yeah.
expensive. It's not a hobby at this level, right? Like this is a
Right.
lifestyle. Like this is what we do. It doesn't matter if it's straight line or circle track. So I tried out for the NASCAR diversity program a few times and didn't get selected, unfortunately, in the first couple tries, but they offered me a job. So when I graduated high school, I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina. I literally started sweeping the floors. Like when I say that I couldn't read a tape measure, I mean like I could read the big line, the next big line, and like anything past a quarter inch line. It was kind of getting iffy on if I knew what that really was or not. So you're in the shop and you're with these guys who've been doing it forever, and they're teaching you, and they teach you. You know how shop life is. Like
Yeah.
you get taught the hard way. It's like, all right, kid, go find me a long wait down at the store, and you're like, yeah, okay, whatever. And you go down to the shop, whatever shop they send you to, like, hey man, uh, I'm here from Rev Racing. Like they told me to look for a long wait, and they're like, oh yeah, we got you. Just sit right here. You sit there, and you sit there, and you sit there for about 30 minutes, and you're like, hey, I'm looking for it. And then it starts to click, like, oh wow, they really sent me out,
Right.
looking for nothing. You know what I mean? Or one of my favorite ones was we sent this one girl out. We sent her out looking for a bucket full of sparks. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh,
I
that's
mean,
great.
that's the type of stuff, man. When you're an 18-year-old kid and you're just trying to cut your teeth, like you're just
Right.
trying to do whatever they say. So, was there for 2 years, and Kyle Larson ended up coming through, and I ended up being his interior mechanic, and we won a Canon, which is now ARCA Series Championship in 2012. So then I moved on and moved to SHR, Stewart Haas Racing, and which obviously now Tony Stewart is a big part of the brand with TSR and everything they're doing on the nitro side, which is awesome because I've known Tony was my favorite race car driver growing up. So, and I told people that he was going to be my boss one day. Well, while I was there, I became a part of the Haas development program in 2014. So they sponsored me, sponsored my late model. And it was just me and this other guy named Danny Johnson. And we built this car that actually Bubba Wallace gave me the car. And it sat in this shop for a year before I had any money because 18, 19 years old, making $30,000 a year. There's no real money to go racing.
Right.
You're just trying to figure out how to live,
You
right?
can buy half the
So,
motor.
yeah, I can buy one engine and not eat for the rest of the year. Like
Right.
that's
Right.
pretty
Yeah.
much how it is. And so, that car, it was a late model stock. So it's a perimeter chassis, 8-inch tires, um, I think we're at a 500 carb now, just a crate engine, just a 350 crate engine. And so we built it and we ended up being 38th in the nation. I mean,
Wow.
it's me and him. And this old car that was from like it was dude, this thing was a mashup. Like it was a the front end was a big spring, the rear end was like a coilover spring, and it had two different chassis builders between the center section to the front clip and the rear. It was all over the place. But some of those old chassis, they just run hard, and that thing did. So we were 38th in the nation at one point, and then it kind of forced, the diversity program's hand. Like that. I was like, you can't not see me anymore. You know what I mean? Like I'm here. Like I'm putting in this work. So I got called up to, the NASCAR diversity program. Was there for a year. We had some mild success. Not as good as what we had the year before. It's just different when you go to a bigger team and you have teammates and all this other stuff. So we moved on from there, and at that time I stopped working. After that season, I stopped working at Stewart Haas too. So, and I wasn't with the team anymore, and so now I'm trying to figure out something new, and I start working on this team called MDM Motorsports, and it was me. I was the third hire, and we had 3 race cars and 1 driver when we were going part time. And in 3 years, we had 30 race cars, 6 teams, had won 30 plus races, and had 2 championships. And we even won a NASCAR truck race. Like we were that team. It was probably like Schumacher team back when they were really
Right.
dominating everything. Like we were crushing it for about 3 years, and I ended up going from a mechanic to communications. So I was in the front office now, which was cool. In the meetings, like trying to do marketing stuff, get sponsors, and all that cool stuff. So that shut down in 2018. Like at the peak. I mean, we were still crushing it. It was about this time actually, because I went to run a race called the Snowflake during the Snowball Derby weekend in Pensacola, Florida, and people were coming up to me and they're like, "Hey, Mamba, like, so you guys are having an auction at your shop?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Like, "Yeah, I heard you guys are shutting down." I'm like, "Okay, first off, I don't have time to think about this. I need this car to get faster.
Right.
So I'll deal with that later. Like, because whether that's happening or not, this car needs to get around the racetrack better." So, but it was true, and we shut down, and they started selling it, and I was one of the last people to know, which sucked. Because being in front office, like you can't just go down to the shop, right, and be like, "Hey guys, like I want to put my application in," and like, yeah, I know a lot of people, but there's only so many of those jobs. So it was really tough, and I couldn't find anything. But I didn't want to go back to being a mechanic because I knew my ceiling was going to be low, and I wanted to
Right.
give myself a good opportunity. So, um, luckily, Experiential Events Group that puts on a lot with JRT, the events for Dodge. They called me and they had an event in Charlotte, and I was like, it was an NBA All Star event, and I'm like, yeah, I'm down. Like, I don't know where my next paycheck is coming from. So right now, like, yeah, this sounds great. And they like the energy I brought, and having a good time with people. And because I love people, man, I love making people smile and give them good experience. And that's right down that alley. So they put me on the Dodge Thrill Ride Tour, and then on the Dodge NHRA Tour with the Demon Sims. And I started just being a guy with you know boxes and bringing the t-shirts, to then a BA, and then a product specialist, and then ENCing on the mic, and then leading the tours. So like just kind of built my way up in the brand, and without the brand putting me on with the mic and hosting stuff, I would never be doing what I'm doing with NASCAR, being the chief hype officer for NASCAR, doing driver intros, being on the Trackside Live stage, the new show on USA Network, Race for the Championship. I was a pundit on that. So we got Mark Mamba and the Mayor. So it's this podcast I host with Mark Martin and Jeff Burton, 2 of motorsports legends, you know what I mean? So without Dodge giving me the opportunity and putting me face forward, I never would be doing what I'm doing. It's so crazy.
Yeah, I mean, and you're standing there in 2019, like just punched in the face, like, man, I don't even know what's gonna happen next, and
Defeated, man, defeated.
it just everything always seems to line up how it needs to.